All right, my great friends, this is Mr. Davis. This is our last video of the week that you all watch. And it's a weekend and you get a little break here. So today is not like too much packed, not a long lecture. I just want to kind of go over our instructions, and then I do want to do a one or two like little reading questions and kind of get you on your way and get you prepared a little bit for Tuesday's test. All right, so one, as of Thursday night, your Google quiz will be on there. So it's a reading quiz. I challenge you. I know you have your book. I know you can flip through the internet. I didn't put a time limit on it, etc. But just do your best. I mean, you only have to get 5 out of 8 right to get full credit. So you know, yeah, I guess we're on the honor code as far as using your book or not, but try to do it honorably. So take the Google quiz. You'll have till technically you'll have till Monday night. So generally, what I'm doing, if you haven't picked up on it, like I'll post an assignment on Monday, and then it would be due. I want to say like it would be due Tuesday at 9 o'clock. So I would give you like almost 2 days, because usually like Sunday night is when I post Monday's assignment. All right, so that take the Google quiz. Secondly, if you could open this link up while we're going over this Ed Puzzle lecture, it will help you. Please have that open, etc. And then 3, here is I've attached a Unit 6 review. It's a great read for the test. One thing that don't get bogged down on, this is not where you have to remember every single fact that's on this Unit 6 review. You need to know the big concepts. As I go over AP questions, they're not asking you necessarily specific facts. They want to know if you know the big concept. So don't get bogged down in thinking you have to memorize every single item on the outline. Just make sure you know the big concepts, and then read it a couple times, about 5 pages, like similar to this, and it'll be helpful. It is mainly for your AP exam, so it's like you will have a big outline on every single unit, all 6 units. It's what I did before the first semester exam. Let's see, and then finally, I also don't want you to forget about this Quizlet. So when I said what I call this tons of facts for outside knowledge for your Quizlet, or that's what the Quizlet is. Again, you don't need to memorize 60 different facts. You'll notice, some classes you might have 100-question multiple choice test. Our questions are generally in the 20-question range on a test, and that's because we're asking you about big concepts. But what the Quizlet does is it gives you tons of outside facts to use about your SAQs. One of the main problems I saw with the SAQs is that we weren't bringing anything outside of what was given you into your answers, because anybody can just take what is given to you and kind of spin it back around and try to answer the question. You need to include an outside fact in an SAQ, and that's an outside fact for A, an outside fact for B, and an outside fact for C, if you remember the ABC SAQ model. So what this does is gives you just tons of outside facts to use. Put that in your arsenal. And like I said, some people use the white man's burden. Some people use the term westernization and some other things. And then I said, pretty much anything you can tie into a picture and make it an outside fact. It might be a stretch sometimes. You might have to be a little bit manipulative how you use it. But for example, one of our terms is Ethiopia. So if you think back to the picture, it was called the educated elite. It was these young Asian boys sitting with the king of Siam, and they were all dressed in European clothing. So how the heck could I use a term like Ethiopia, which is a country in Africa, to that educated elite picture? And what I said was Ethiopia successfully avoided colonization during the age of exploration or imperialism, and were one of the few successful resistance movement. This picture is a microcosm of the other colonized areas under European rule. The Europeans offer a westernization as a form of the white man's burden to improve society. Unfortunately, Europeans' motives were almost always self-serving, prevented the masses from running their country. And so I think my answer for that would be a successful, correct answer. And that is using a term like Ethiopia, which is nowhere near Siam, but it is in the same time period, in the same age of expiration. And also, I put on there March 19th, I posted a practice quiz on Unit 6. If you want to take that practice quiz, you're going to get 2 extra free questions on your test. So it's going to be a 20-question multiple choice section. I'm going to give you 3 free ones, and then I'm going to start marking at number your 4th one wrong. I'm going to start counting off. But if you do this multiple choice practice quiz on Google Classroom, which 2 people already did, Slick Nick and somebody else who I don't know, you will get your answers marked off after your 5th one wrong. That's a big advantage for you. So do it. And it's a way for me to see how we're doing on these concepts. So please do that. And also, there's somebody that got, I think, a 10 out of 10. So please, and still do not know who that is. So if you could email me that was you, so I can give you the right answers. Okay, so now let's refer to that link to the books. Say regular World Civ book. Okay, so I don't want to spend too much time in this. I just want to just go over this because I felt like I've neglected this. And again, I said before, I'm doubling down on Unit 6 because this is it. So if you can take some time, just 3 minutes, and read section 4, so like 708 to the bottom of 711, 4 pages. You know, take like 4 or 5 minutes. I'm going to ask you some questions. All right, my good friends, let's pick it up at page 709, I think it is where these 2 maps are. These 2 maps are amazing. This is just amazing stuff right now. So this map here shows you what the quote-unquote New World looked like in 1800 and what the quote-unquote New World looked like in 1830. Okay, so just take that in for a second. Okay, so the purple here is Spain. Spain controlled everything. Portugal is brown. Remember, the line of demarcation gave the Brazil to Portuguese. So the brown is Portugal. Everything else, I mean, all the way up into Canada almost. It's crazy that this is all Spanish territory. Now look at purple again is Spain. Okay, literally like the only thing they have over here is Cuba, just about. Everything else is independent countries. And so my question that I'll put in the Ed puzzle is, this is the exact opposite of what happened to what other area of the world. Okay, and the correct answer would be Africa. This is the exact opposite of what happened in Africa. In Africa, the green that's all here, it's only Ethiopia. Ethiopia is like one of the only countries that remains independent. Here, everybody gets their independence from the Spanish. These are all independent countries. You have a tiny sliver of the Netherlands. You have Denmark. You have Spain is still up here, and in Cuba. But for the most part, there was a guy named Simon Bolivar who helped lead these revolutions in the 1800s, and it mostly becomes, independent nations. Now, it doesn't mean that they were successful independent nations. Doesn't mean that they were ruled like with nice, Jesus-loving men and Christian men. They are oftentimes really mean son of guns that ruled the places, but they were independent. And this is also signifies kind of the end of the Spanish Empire. Spain was really tied to the Catholic Church, and they did not get into the Industrial Revolution like England did. They don't have as many famous universities, I would say, as like England may have. So that's a huge map. So make sure you read this section pretty good from 708 to 711. I'm going to throw in a few questions here for us. And then I really want you to focus on what the United States was doing in America. So George Washington had really warned against political parties. He also warned against like getting involved in other countries' problems and getting entangled in other wars. George Washington talked about it. Thomas Jefferson talked about it. So here we're like the exact opposite. So the Monroe Doctrine is an important doctrine to know. Basically saying like we don't want you over here in the West. Stay out of the West. And then the Roosevelt Quarterly of the Monroe Doctrine basically starts saying, anytime nations come over, may not even be like military. They're just coming over to like collect money. We're probably going to come down and we are going to have a problem with that. So I really would like you to read all 708 through 711. It's just a good, and really, if you can continue on to 715. So I'm not going to ask you all the questions. I think I told you to stop at like page 711. So that's where our questions are going to come from to finish off this lecture. But Simon Bolivar, he's a really important guy to know. He helps lead. He helps make this map green instead of purple. Okay, so just great comparison because they'll always ask you a question about comparing one part of the world to another. If you had to compare Africa to South America and quote unquote New World, tons of facts you can use because they're different. They resisted the Europeans, but the Europeans will still find a way to exploit some of the resources, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So that'll be the end of the lecture. Just answer these questions. Email me if you have any questions.